What is up, Razorback Nation? We are back with episode 64 of Hogs on the Hill, your go-to podcast for all things Arkansas Razorbacks. We're brought to you by our friends over at Razor Pigs. Looking good never felt so fun. Razor Pigs is the Arkansas-born brand, bringing some serious style to the golf course, tailgate, and everywhere in between. From high-quality polos to head-turning hats, they've got what you need to rep the natural state with pride. Found it right here at home and now run by a Razorback-loving family. Razor Pigs is where comfort meets cool. So go hog wild and shop Razor Pigs today at razorpigs.us and our lovely friends over at Scarlet Letter. Arkansas's very own handcrafted spiked seltzer. You can check them out today. And if you're in Northwest Arkansas, swing by and check out the Core Brewery Tap Room, where you can check out Scarlet Letter and all its various flavors, as well as their new hard iced teas that they just released. So check those guys out. And guys, we're going to jump right into it. Opening SEC play this week. Headed to Oxford to take on the Ole Miss Rebels. And to kind of help us preview that matchup tonight, we're going to welcome in our special guest, Zach Morth from the Rebel Walk. And how's it going, Zach?
Good, man. Really pumped to be on the show and talk a little football heading into the weekend. So I really appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, it's fun. And in case you missed it, I was able to jump on his show earlier this week. And so kind of flipping the script here. So, just going into this weekend, Zach, what's your general thoughts on the game and how are you feeling about the upcoming matchup?
Yeah, I think the proper word to describe this would be anxious, because I would say Ole Miss fans weren't necessarily fulfilled with the performance last week in Lexington. And, there's a couple things to take away from that. And the first is that, we touched on this briefly during our original show on my channel there, Caleb, but the Austin Simmons hype was a little too high going into the season. We're talking about a 19-year-old kid who was just sitting behind the bench. I know he was watching Jackson Dart. I understand that he came in against Georgia and did some incredible things, but now he's the guy. And the second that, his story gets to a national level, the spotlight is all over him. A guy who used to play baseball, a guy who graduated college already. And then you see it already, the Tua Tagovailoa comparisons. So it's almost a smaller scale what's happening to Arch Manning. And now Ole Miss fans are sitting here, in my opinion, a little unsatisfied with the performances that he's giving. But there's definitely potential for Austin, and that's something that we're going to be looking forward to. Granted that he's full health. It looks like he probably sprained his ankle last week. We just touched on this, but he's not on tonight's injury report. So, all signals are pointing that he's going to play, but he's definitely not going to be a factor in the rushing attack like he has been in weeks prior. And he's definitely it's going to affect his game, point blank simple. And I would not be surprised to see the backup, Trinidad Chambliss, who's a transfer from a Division II school, probably get some reps in this game as well. But, just going back to my main point, it's another SEC game against an Arkansas team who is not only upset about what happened last year, but seems to be pretty pissed off with Patrick Kudas, Luke Haas, and Jalen Braxton. So it's going to be fun, man. I'm really looking forward to this one.
Yeah, so just to kind of talk about that injury report, how I know that Lane Kiffin also likes to, play some gamesmanship when it comes to this. Right now, I'm looking at it. It was updated today, 7:10, so just a few minutes ago, and there's only two people listed for Ole Miss. Right now it's Traylon Ray and then Jalen Braxton, who's questionable. So that, that's also not saying, Luke Haas. Luke Haas hasn't played for you guys yet, and he was a pretty good talent at Arkansas, just couldn't stay on the field. And then when he was, Taylor Green wouldn't target him. Do you think he's actually going to play this game? And and Jalen Braxton too, I've heard some things, some rumors about him playing as well or being available. How accurate do you think this is right now? And how much of it's gamemanship by Lane Kiffin?
Yeah, it's a great question, Austin. And I think the gamesmanship and, all the little things that Lane used to do regarding injuries used to be really prevalent when these injury reports weren't a thing. He'd be lying about players from the Monday press conference throughout the whole week. I think it's a little bit different now. I kind of got into an argument with another Ole Miss fan on Twitter, but it sounded like he was being relatively honest with us about Luke Haas being able to play this weekend. On Monday, he came out and he said, yeah, he looks pretty good. We were pretty confident that he's going to go. Jalen Braxton was a very different answer. It sounded like he's still recovering over some things. And I mean, you guys understand it. It feels like something's always lingering with him, which isn't great because like I want to see him. He did awesome things up there in Fayetteville during his freshman season, but definitely confident that Luke Haas is going to be out there. I would say Braxton will be available just purely based on the adrenaline and emotion that he's feeling come Saturday. Just not too sure if we're going to see him consistently on the field. But yeah, Patrick Kuda is definitely good to go. Luke Haas, I would expect him to make some sort of impact. Obviously, was going to be tight end, probably 2, sliding in here, still a young kid as well. And then Braxton, we'll see, probably a game time decision, but would not be surprised if you guys saw all 3 players on the field Saturday.
I want to ask you too. Sorry, Austin, go ahead.
I had one backed up on it, and you might be asking this question. I'm sorry, but the Patrick Kudas. So we talked about Luke Haas and Jalen Braxton a little bit, but Pat Kudas hasn't really had a very warm welcome the last couple of games. I haven't watched. I'll be honest, I haven't watched that much of Ole Miss yet, but it seems like they're thinking that he's not doing a very good job. Can you tell us a little bit about what that frustration is coming from, and is it legitimate, or are they just being a little bit, too, how fans are about him?
No, I think it goes both ways. First and foremost, if you guys hear a dog barking, my neighbor needs to let this thing in. So I'll just say that off the bat. But Kudas, on one side of the ball, Kewan Lacey, our running back, is rushing for 250 yards. Austin Simmons is throwing for 500 plus yards. And they didn't give up a sack last week. So on the stat sheet, yeah, Kudas in the offensive line is fine. But if you watch these games and you look at the interceptions that Austin's thrown, 2 out of the 4 are literally because there are a giant defensive lineman in his face. And unfortunately, he throws the ball and it gets misdirected because of that. And Kudas falls into that category. You guys are going to see it firsthand, but based off what I've seen, the left-hand side of the line is much stronger over there with Diego Pounds and Delano Townsend. And then our center, Bryson Sanders, right guard, Kudas, and right tackle, Jaden Williams, also known as the blind side of Austin Simmons, have not been awesome to watch. And watching Austin take these hits, it's very different than Jackson, because Jackson starts built like a linebacker. The guy's 225 pounds, 6'2". Austin's a way skinnier version of that. He's got the height still, but he's not that running back, tough, physical style of player that we're seeing from a guy who's 22, 23 years old in Jackson Dart. So it's different, and I hope that Kudas and that right side of the line come prepared to an Arkansas team who's going to be ready to go Saturday.
Yeah, no, I don't. My question is not on a specific player or anything. My question is the history between Arkansas and Ole Miss. You talk about playing night games in Oxford. Some of the best games, maybe not so much for Ole Miss side of things, but 4th and 25 happened at night in Oxford. 7 overtime thriller that was crazy. I don't know if some of these folks are old enough to remember that one, but it's been some crazy games. So. I know you can't really, I don't know if we'll see a crazy one this Saturday or not, but you got to think, this game can't be too comfortable for either side, fan side base, because it's really the first test between both teams. So what are your thoughts on what kind of atmosphere and what kind of game you think we're going to see Saturday night?
It's going to be rowdy in Oxford. I know, we're pretty pumped up. Obviously, Arkansas is named as one of the teams that we're going to be playing every year. And you see it even in, basketball and baseball. The rivalry is definitely there. And then you take into account the history, all these weird things that happen that have accounted in Ole Miss losses for a lot of the times, right? I think the atmosphere is going to be fun. It's going to be awesome for Ole Miss and Arkansas. It's going to be your classic SEC, very loud game. And even last year, Hobbs, going to Fayetteville in probably the most talented Ole Miss team ever, we're making podcasts the week of it's Arkansas. You never know what's going to happen. Granted, we come in there and Jackson is lights out, but it's what version of Ole Miss are we going to get this week? So we're still piecing that together. And then you take into account the history and now the rivalry, like I touched on, like Arkansas players openly coming out and, speaking on all the transfer players. There's definitely a lot of juice heading into this one. And like you said, man, it's a pretty uneasy feeling going into that stadium when the ball gets kicked off. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this too, and Pittman mentioned this in his presser, and let me get your thoughts on it. He said to him, he feels like whoever wins this game is going to be the team that runs and rushes the ball the best. What do you kind of think about that? Do you think that's really how it's going to go, or do you think there could be some other factors in there?
I think it's a huge factor, and I think it's to a different level. I think for Arkansas, that's not only, getting Mikey and those guys involved, but Taylon Green. We haven't seen that running quarterback who I mentioned it, but the dude runs like Lamar Jackson sometimes. He just happens to be bigger and stronger. Like he's fast, agile, and he'll run a linebacker over. So definitely there's some concern. There's probably going to have to be a spy on Taylon at all times. I thought they handled him really nicely last year. But again, man, Petrino, year 2, all these different things. He's a completely different player with a whole new set of guys. So that's my concern for the rushing side of Arkansas. But looking at Ole Miss, another fair point to Pittman. Like if Kewan Lacey our running back, if he doesn't get the ball rolling, we saw it last year, all of last year. The passing game doesn't really exist. Like you have to pound the rock for 3 to 4 yards a carry, or else there is no RPO because there's no run option. Like that's the point of the system. So it's a great point. I think it's going to be interesting to see, how the Ole Miss defensive line holds up, because last year, you tried to run the ball against Ole Miss, you're probably getting 2 yards a carry. So this is, again, one of those bigger tests that we're going to find out, can they handle an excellent rushing attack, and how are they going to, contain Taylon Green from start to finish. So I think if that doesn't decide the game, it's going to play a huge factor into how the offenses start to scheme quarter by quarter and obviously into the second half.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that too, you think about it, for us Arkansas fans from that perspective, our D-line, Arkansas is looking at it, which one are you going to get? So, the first 2 games of the season, you've kind of seen a Jekyll and Hyde approach. First week, defense starts off a little slow, looks a little rough. And then, you turn into last week and defense looks much better, much improved. And then going into week 3, you're like, all right, so which defense we're going to get? That one that starts off fast, gets ready to go, or that one that, week 1 starts off slow, lets Alabama A&M march right down the field and score.
Exactly. And probably one of the most demoralizing feelings as an Ole Miss fan is when Lane Kiffin receives, which he does every time he wins the toss, and then you don't score on your scripted drive. Because now it's like last week in Kentucky, I think, there were a couple first downs there, but we punted relatively early. And it's like, wow, like the scripted drive doesn't work. Who knows what's going on in Lane's brain right now. So I think that's huge, dude. And again, that start to the game, especially on the road for Arkansas, it is pretty important. We saw it. Ole Miss went to Georgia a couple of years ago, and when the crowd gets involved in an SEC game, it changes everything. So for Arkansas, obviously you got to come out, scoring, guns blazing, defensively and offensively. And Austin Simmons, I think he's either throwing 3 or 4 of his picks in the first quarter. So that's something for you guys to watch out for as well. How comfortable is Austin being back there, especially not being 100%. So great points.
Yeah. And I'm a big stats guy. I really like looking at stats. I think they tell a huge picture, one that you may not even see. SEC Mike, the guy who runs that SEC podcast, he puts out these little number things, and where each team is ranked based on whatever category it is. And right now, he had Ole Miss's defense efficiency for rushing plays is 119 versus 58 for Arkansas. So I think that's probably I would have to say it favors Arkansas to a point, because you guys have actually played a decent team that that can stop the run or run efficiently. Arkansas is not right now. Arkansas is number 6 in the nation in rush efficiency. So we don't really know where that is. If Arkansas can really keep doing that and run with Taylor Green, I think that's right. But the one that I really keyed in on was the third down offense and the third down defense. Third down offense, Arkansas is number 4 in the nation. For Ole Miss, they're number 61. Third down defense, though, Arkansas is number 77, while Ole Miss's defense is 19. Arkansas consistently doesn't win on first and second down. So that's one of the things I'm worried about when they come into, to this game and they play a legit defense instead of, these, borderline JUCO schools that they've played so far. That's one thing I'm worried about going into this game. And, to be honest, the third down efficiency being 61 on offense for Ole Miss kind of throws me off too, because they haven't really played anyone either. But then again, Kentucky's defense is, pretty good. At least they looked pretty good whenever they played you guys.
Yeah, all really good points first and foremost there, Austin. Definitely Ole Miss, on those third downs, I thought it got progressively better throughout the game when they figured out, hey, we can actually run the ball here. And then Kewan Lacey, he's cracking out like 4 or 5 runs, 4 or 5 yards per carry there. And then again, that opens up the entire offense. So that whether he has the ability to do that or not is going to be crucial. And then again, Austin was utilized in the rushing game with a high sprained ankle. You can't do that if you want him to be sitting back there making throws and moving around fluently. So we'll see what happens there. I will say, though, third down defense, it's a good statistic for Ole Miss. It typically is. Golding does a great job rotating those guys and, kind of assigning them to third down so that when they go out there, they're ready to go. And it felt like I was similar story to how, last year against Georgia, that defensive line kind of ended the game. That's what happened in Lexington. Like those dudes, whether it's be in the pass rush or stopping the run, they were everywhere, really making Calzada and Mark Stoops pretty uncomfortable. So, but can you contain Taylor Green? There's some athletic guys who are going to be able to spy him here and there. But, if that offensive attack from Petrino is really set nicely, like you said, Arkansas is a tough team to stop. I think we're going to find a lot of these answers early in the game. But I definitely, Caleb and I have touched on it. This could easily be a 30 plus from each side game. So,
yeah, and here's one thing to consider too. Last year, whenever Ole Miss and Arkansas met, Taylor Green wasn't completely healthy either. He had that deep bone bruise in his leg, and he's still dealing from that. He was still pretty athletic and still pretty shifty in the pocket, but he was nowhere near what he was at the beginning of the year or what he looks like now. So that's legitimate concern for Ole Miss, but I am a little bit worried to see. Well, I'm not worried necessarily. I'm curious to see how Arkansas's offensive line is going to deal with Ole Miss because, like you said, their defensive line last year was really, really good. One of the best in the league, if not the country. And so I'm hoping that Arkansas can continue that with the guys that they pulled in. But at the same time, there's a lot of uncertainty going into this game whenever it comes to the trenches.
Exactly. And, same deal over here. Like, does the Ole Miss defensive line get stopped and shut out? Like, we don't know. And I think that's not concerning, but like I said at the beginning, like it makes me anxious because I don't have the answers to this Arkansas team. Like last year, Ole Miss played 4 cupcakes. So, Kentucky comes to town and we're expecting to whoop them and they show up and beat us. It's like, wow, like clearly that's not the team I've been watching for the past 4 weeks when you're playing, like you said, borderline junior college schools. So the trenches is going to be interesting. I think my question, similar to you, Austin, is our offensive line against that Arkansas D-line and those 2 really dominant linebackers. Because over in Lexington, Kentucky did a great job bringing pressure, like I said, but Ole Miss was still able to knock off, 100-plus yards in the rushing game. Austin Simmons throws for a few touchdowns. He's able to get the ball out at some points. It's just finding consistency for Ole Miss. And, whether they can do that against Arkansas, I don't know. So definitely concerning heading into this weekend.
I got a question for you, but it's not pertaining to this game. I want to know how you feel about Jackson Dart with the Giants, and do you think he's going to start here soon?
I would
Because
hope so, man. I
my
mean,
personal opinion, Russell Wilson is absolute garbage, and I think
yeah. And I like Russ, like Super Bowl champ, all-time great guy, but at some point, like, you got to hang him up, fellas.
I'm telling you.
I don't know. Especially, like, it'd be a different story if Jackson looked awful in the preseason, but, like, he looked phenomenal. He surprised me.
He looked amazing.
I was like, wow, like, I wish we got a little more of this here at Ole Miss. So, yeah, I think it needs to happen soon, if not this week, hopefully the next or the next. But, yeah, Russ, great dude, great player. It's time to hang him up, my friend.
Right.
Well, before we get ready to let you get out of here, any final thoughts, predictions, expectations for the game on Saturday? I know we talked a little bit about it at your show, and you kind of hinted at it about kind of potential scores, but any initial final thoughts before we let you get out of here?
Yeah, guys, first and foremost, really grateful to be on the show. I appreciate you guys having me. I mentioned it earlier, but, you know, this game's going to be everything that you dream of in the SEC. It's going to be hot all day. Like, I'm be drinking a couple things, but make sure I'm drinking water as well there in the Grove. And then obviously getting into the game, like I said, when I asked you, you know, the score prediction question, I don't really know either, Caleb, but I do have a pretty good feeling that I mentioned it, but we're looking at 30 plus scores from each side. I think Taylon Green's coming into this game with some juice after last year. Obviously, Luke Haas and Kudas are some guys who are also playing with some juice. Excited to see Haas, maybe Braxton out there, but all in all, this feels like an Ole Miss Arkansas classic just brewing in the making. So I'm excited, man. But again, really grateful and appreciative of you guys for having me on.
Yeah. So before you get out of here, do you want to let everybody know where they can find you and get their Ole Miss content at?
Yeah, man. So follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Rebel Walk. Along with YouTube, it's also at The Rebel Walk, and you can find me and Caleb did a show previewing Arkansas. I recommend you guys tune in. And also drop a follow to my personal Twitter at Zach Mareth. So I appreciate you guys.
We appreciate it. That's Zach from The Rebel Walk. Thank you again, Zach, and it's going to be fun to watch this game on Saturday.
Good luck, guys. Have a good one.
See you.
Thanks, Zach.
All right, guys. So we got the Ole Miss perspective from this. And so based off the conversation we had from Zach, you know, what are more initial thoughts on this game? You know, we've talked about it. You know, is Austin Simmons 100% healthy? Arkansas is going to this. What version of this defense you're going to get? What are your guys' thoughts as we kind of dive in this a little bit more in depth, you know, from just purely our Arkansas perspective here?
Well, there's not a whole lot that I've changed, you know, after listening to him, because what I heard from Zach is what I've heard from the last, you know, week or so from Rebel fans. They're just really not sure about this team. I think they have some good pieces. I don't know if they all work together. Their offensive line does look like it could be suspect, right? And they have I don't want to call him young because he's not really young, Austin Simmons, but this is the first time he started, you know, been the QB1, right? He's played against some big teams, but he's never been QB1. He hasn't had all that pressure on their shoulders. And if you have a, you know, mid to poor offensive line and a quarterback without a whole lot of experience, and you have a defense that is pissed off because they got embarrassed last year, who's also a very blitz heavy defense, I mean, it just feels like it's going to be a rough day for Austin Simmons. I'm not saying they can't put up points against Arkansas's defense. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that it may be Austin Simmons running for his life a whole lot. And that's best case scenario for Arkansas. Here's the thing. On the opposite side, there's not as likely a scenario that it'll happen, but you just don't know. I was talking about it with Zach. I don't know about this offensive line yet, good enough yet. They look really good. You watch that run by Mike Washington where Corey Robbins pulls out and just lays out that dude in the secondary. You have a little bit more like grit than some of the guys you had last year, but at the same time, they haven't played anybody. So We got to see. This is gonna tell a lot about both teams. And there's been some Heisman talk with Taylor Green, right? I mean, I don't remember who sent it, but someone sent it in the group chat that RG3 has him number 7 right now in the Heisman rankings. This could be like the first step into that, or it could be the first step into going 6-6 again, or even worse. So I feel like a lot of people talked about the season hinging on the Memphis game. I feel like it hinges on this game.
Yeah, I mean, Memphis is next week. We'll worry about them when we get there. And
right.
Yeah, if we do lose this one, Memphis is a must win at that point. But yeah, I mean, last year, all I can think about is last year. I know teams are different from last year. Dart's obviously in the NFL, and their D-line isn't what it was last year, and we have basically a whole new secondary out there almost. But it's all I could see last year was drop back, and number 11 was wide open all game long. I hope that that's not the case this year. I don't think it's going to be. I really like our offense. I think they're going to be able to keep us in a lot of games. But yeah, the defense, this is their first true test, really. So hopefully we get to see the pressure like you're talking about. Young quarterbacks always struggle with pressure. So if we're not pressing him, then that's just not a good game plan. So, yeah, I'm interested to see, because really we don't know. We don't know what Ole Miss is made of yet. We don't know what our Arkansas team is made of yet. We're about to find out, though. That's what's exciting about this.
Right. And that's the thing too, like Zach was even mentioning, you think about this, and yeah, Austin Simmons isn't on the injury report, but good and well, after last week and what was kind of diagnosed as a high ankle sprain, that's a 3 to 4 week injury. He's not 100%. And to your point, Hobbs, if Travis Williams isn't out there trying to dial up some pressure and make him move, get out of the pocket and try to run where he could be hampered by that ankle, like you said, that's just not a good game plan. You want to try to get in there, establish kind of some defensive intensity, some grit, get out there and, put pressure right off the bat and make him uncomfortable, first thing. And like Zach said, a lot of his interceptions have come in the first half, the first quarter specifically. So can you get out there, make him uncomfortable, and make him make a few mistakes that hopefully you can turn around in your offense and Taylor Green can make them pay for?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's hard to say that's what you need to do at the same time, because it's a double-edged sword. So far, they've been able to keep up with opposing receivers whenever stuff like that happens. But when you got guys who are like legitimate SEC type guys, and you get somebody out of the pocket and play breaks down, that's when you can start losing some guys out there in the secondary, and receivers can open up for some stuff too. So
right.
It's a double-edged sword when it comes to that. But I feel like I'm with you guys. I think you have to pressure him, even if he is playing. He's still green enough to where if you do that, he could make some mistakes, and he may not be able to see those guys whenever they do get open. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think that's the game plan. That's what you got to do, is dial out some pressure, go zero blitz. I know that they've kind of been holding off on it. They haven't done a whole lot of it against Arkansas State and Alabama A&M. This might be the first week we see a whole lot of those zero blitzes coming on.
Right, and I think that's where you'll see them dive a little bit more in the playbook on both sides of the ball this week, because first 2 weeks you're not playing any conference opponents. You're kind of, for the most part, trying to keep it as vanilla as possible. You don't want to open up your playbook a ton to have film on. And so, yeah, I agree there. But if you look at some of the stats this season for Ole Miss, receiving wise, so, it seems like Austin Simmons could be favoring one specific receiver, and Harrison Wallace III. He has 9 receptions on the season for 247 yards. And then, Deuce Alexander, number 2 receiver there, 6 catches for 85 yards. And then you dropped all the way down to 4 catches by their tight end, Daquan Wright. So, fresh green quarterback, first year starting. Of course, he's probably going to be reliant on a key receiver. And so I think that's one of the things too is, you keep a guy on Wallace and force him to try to make throws to these other guys, and maybe that's where you can catch him in some mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. That's what you got to do. But I'm kind of with Sam Pittman too. I think we've talking about the passing game, but the running game is going to be super important. I think Angel in the comments was over there. If you shut Lacey down, then you pretty much win this game, because I don't want to say that, right? Because who knows? Austin Simmons, and you know how Arkansas is. If Arkansas Austin Simmons is out and they have the guy behind him come in, Arkansas is just the worst team when it comes to having playing a backup quarterback. I don't know why. So he could just go off and throw for like 350 yards. Who knows? But in my gut and by the stats, I think if you stop that rushing attack and make them one-dimensional, I don't know if they're going to have much of an offense. But at the same time, I don't know. I don't know. This I think with our linebackers, though, I think that if we can, stop that running game, I think they're good enough to play in coverage as well. So do a lot of run blitzes is what I'm saying. A lot of run blitzes, a lot of, trying to get that artificial pressure in passing situations too. Just a lot of pressure every down. And maybe you can stuff them out. Now, on the flip side, though, what is Ole Miss's defense going to do for Arkansas's offense? Because they gave up 23 points to a Kentucky team that hasn't left the 1920s, right? They are really piss poor. They can't throw, and they run not very well, and they still gave up 23 points to them. So I'm kind of curious to see if Arkansas may be able to flip the script and pull, 50 points out of this. I don't know if they will. I think it's probably a good possibility. But I think more or less the team that gets to 45 points first is probably the team that wins.
Right. And you look at it too, this is also an Ole Miss defense that gave up, 191 rushing yards against Georgia State.
Yeah. Yeah, their rush defense isn't great. And also, I don't think Arkansas's, like you said, they've kind of kept it light on the playbook, but Arkansas has a really good stretch run play. Like, they can get outside with speed, and they got some good offensive linemen to where they can work up to the second level out there in space like that. I mean, Corey Robinson was the big example of that, but they've done it more often than not whenever they've played these smaller schools. If they can get on the edge, dude, Arkansas might put up 150, 100, 200 yards in rushing. Yeah, I'm really not impressed with Ole Miss's defense at all.
Yeah. I mean, especially if you it's like they said, if Taylor Green gets into that second, third level, good luck. I mean, you're not going to be able to run him down. We've seen that firsthand on many occasions, a few times this year, especially in that Arkansas State game where, he gets loose, those linebackers or that secondary tries to make a tackle, and he's just, there's one clip that I saw where it looks like, oh, you think they're going to tackle him, and it's just like that second, turn on the jets, and he's gone. So,
yeah, because with his long strides, it's hard to take an angle at him. You think he's going slower, and you take bad angles, and you can't catch up. They may be just as fast as Taylor Green, but they're not going to be faster.
Right.
Seldom are they going to be faster. There may be a few people in the SEC that are, but not a lot.
And then the question too is, even if they're fast enough, are they big enough to bring down Taylor?
Well, from the back, it's pretty easy. Yeah. Those are also super scary too at the same time. But yeah, I mean,
talking about Taylor, can they bring down Mike Washington? That boy about to have a good game. If they can't, if our offensive line does what they can do, Mike Washington might go off.
Yeah, Mike Washington, and even Braylon the battering ram Russell.
Right, exactly. You know what matchup I'm really, really looking forward to the most, though, out of this whole entire thing, it's Cam Ball and Patrick Kudus. Because the whole Patrick Kudus thing, saying he would never be a Rebel, this, that, and the third,
that he hates Ole Miss and.
Yeah, he hates Ole Miss. Now he's there and he's not doing well, and Ole Miss fans hate him too. And then Cam Ball is just like the complete opposite, where he's like been extremely loyal to Arkansas throughout everything, throughout huge bags of cash being pushed his way.
Yeah, fan favorite. Everybody loves him.
And I just like in my heart, I don't know this for certain, but in my heart, I feel like Cam Ball is just pissed that he went over there and did that, because that's not what he would do, And the thing is, he plays guard, so he's going to be right in front of Patrick Kudus. That's the thing I'm going to be looking for. I think that'll be a fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's like we jump over to, some of these comments here too. Angel had asked earlier on talking about Austin Simmons. He's left-handed. Yes, he is. So, that's something that, is kind of a little opposite for Arkansas. How Zach was talking about Patrick Kudus' side of the line is the blind side for Austin Simmons, whereas the stronger side of the line for Arkansas with Corey Robinson and Fernando Carmona is Taylon's blind side. So it's you've got a flip-flop of comparisons there where, the weak side, of course, is the blind side for Ole Miss, but on the flip side, the strong side is Taylon's blind side, and you feel much more comfortable about that. And then, Cody jumps in and says, "Go Hogs, Ole Miss quarterback is terrible under pressure, and one thing that we are doing this year that was a big issue last year is finishing drives. I'm glad to see it." Jeremiah says, "We'll spank Ole Miss and be ranked next week."
I like the optimism. Hey, The thing about the finishing drives, that's where the third down offense comes from. Right, because Arkansas has been in third down a lot more than they should. Let's be honest.
Right.
They do. I don't know why. I think it might be because they were playing a little bit conservative, and they weren't winning on first and second down like they should have been. You may see a little bit different, strategy going into this game. But at the same time, it's a little scary because you don't want to rely on that either. So just because they've been finishing drives against, these lower competition doesn't necessarily mean they'll do it against, Ole Miss. But at the same time, I think they've been pulling back. I think they may be able to do a little bit better on first and second down. I think that is also a big key in this game.
Right. I'd like to see more shot plays from Petrino. We haven't seen him necessarily let Taylor air out the ball this season so far, and I think it's just due time. Wait till we open that playbook up, and he dives into some of his classic favorite Bob Petrino plays where, he has some, complex routes and things like that, and, lets Taylor show off that arm a little bit.
Yeah, and, finishing drives the first two games against Arkansas State and Alabama A&M, that's one thing. This is on the road in the SEC. Let's finish the drive. I love our kicker. I got most confidence in the world he can hit from 60. I believe it. But the thing is, we got to finish drives to beat Ole Miss this weekend. So,
right. And, Cody here says Arkansas State had one of the best receivers in the country, and our secondary was able to shut him down.
Yeah, I mean I think that's a bit of a stretch. I mean, statistically maybe, but I'm guessing he's talking about Cobb.
Yeah, Chauncey
Chauncey Cobb. He's fast for sure, but he's very, very little. At the same time, like I get what you're saying though. They did shut him down whenever for being as fast as he is. The only reason why he broke that long return is because he had there was one missed assignment, and that's all that it takes for kickoff return to break. It's just one missed assignment. But not everything about route running is about speed, though. Sometimes it's more about agility, and agility is just being able to make the guy that you're in front of do what you want him to do so you can get open. Is basically what it means. So it's going to be a step up in the competition. Let's be clear. Like Chauncey Cobb is good, but there's a reason he's playing for Arkansas State and not for an SEC team.
Yeah. Jeremiah jumps in here and says 3-game parlay. Arkansas and Vandy to win, Arkansas State to cover.
I mean, I can't argue. Dude, I've been hyping Vandy this entire time. Are they part of the Pick'ems?
Yes, they are. We
All
will talk
right.
about them.
I'm not. Yeah,
And then-
dude, South Carolina sucks. I don't know. I don't understand the hype with Lenora Sellers. Vandy has destroyed people. Like, I don't get why only 11% are picking Vandy. I'm picking them. I already told you guys now. I'm picking.
Go ahead,
Vandy.
please, so I can catch up. Go ahead.
And then Sean jumps in here and says, do we think whoever has the most rushing yards wins, barring the turnover margin? Also, our freshman kicker might be critical in this game. I agree 100% there. You know, I talked about it on Zach's show where I said, you know, to me, this could be one of those classic, you know, heavyweight fights. Arkansas and Ole Miss are just, you know, scoring, you know, throwing the punches. And, you know, it's like which team's defense can get the best stop and give a guy like Scott Starzik the opportunity, you know, for a field goal to win the game in a clutch situation. And you know, I think that could be key for Arkansas. We saw him, you know, so far this season, knock on wood, be perfect on field goal or on, you know, PATs, you know, come out his first field goal of his Arkansas career as a freshman, hit a 50-plus yard field goal. You know, I wouldn't rule it out. And, you know, that's a great weapon that, you know, if he can come in the SEC at night on the road and do something clutch like that, you know, count me in.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of, I don't know how Arkansas's defense is going to be. I am pretty confident Ole Miss's defense is going to be bad. I don't know how Arkansas is, but I'm leaning to not, you know, giving up some points. So I think that's perfect analysis. This, you know, that kicker being able to hit a last second field goal. I said that the team that gets the 45 points is going to be the team that wins, but it's probably going to just be the team that's last, that has the ball last at the same time. So, but
right, who can get a last minute stop to give their offense the ball for a chance to win the game.
Right. And I think the rushing yards point is also a pretty fair point. And I don't think Arkansas, I think if you make Ole Miss one dimensional like that, it's just not going to be fair.
Right. So as we kind of wrap up the preview for this, you know, you're looking at it 6:00 ESPN, you know, first night game kickoff of the week, of the season for Arkansas. Per ESPN, they've got Ole Miss as an 8.5-point favorite in this game with a 60.5 over under. You guys, does Arkansas cover, and are you going over or under on the points?
I think they cover. Yeah, I think that the line is pretty big, and the fact that it was at 11 when it first dropped, and in a couple days it went down to 8 points. I think that means that Vegas knows something's up, and they're, you know, trying to hedge their bets a little bit. But I think the Hogs will cover. The over, what was it again?
60.5.
Yes. Yeah, over. Big time.
What do you think, Hobbs?
Look, these games, I've watched Ole Miss, Arkansas, crazy games in Oxford. So I'm going to take over because these games can turn into shootouts that go to overtime and crazy plays happen. So, yeah, I think over 60 is fair. 8.5 spread for Ole Miss is a little ridiculous. We're covering that easily, if not winning this game.
There you go. Pigpen jumps in here and says, definitely taking the over. You know, I think this is going to be one of those games where, 60.5 points, so 61 essentially, you know, that I think you could see that by the third quarter. So, you know, this could be one of those games that, you know, it's either going to be, I feel like it's going to be one of those games where it's going to be one, you know, the pendulum is going to swing one way or the other. It's going to be an insane high scoring game. It's going to be over 60.5. Or, you know, it could be an old fashioned SEC contest where, hey, maybe both teams come out here and it's, you know, a 17-14 type of game. But I highly doubt that. I'm leaning towards, you know, high scoring, these teams are going to be going at it, and it's going to be a fun Saturday night to watch the Hogs on ESPN at 6:00.
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty reminiscent of that 53 to 52 or 52 to 51 loss with KJ Jefferson. That game was super exciting. I feel like it's going to be on
double
that level.
overtime, and Pittman was like, I chose to go for 2 because I didn't want to just keep going back and forth in this game. Yeah.
And I don't mean to rehash that, but I agree with that. Like, that was, you needed to go for 2 there, and it just didn't work out.
Just try to put the nail in the coffin.
Looks like former Razorback Dietrich Wise just got carted off the field in this game, so that sucks.
Yeah, you hate to hear that on the Thursday night football game. So, as we kind of finish up the football talk, don't forget, guys, if you want to go have some fun and watch the game somewhere, go visit our friends over at Parker Sports Grill. Today's show is partially brought to you by our friends at Parker Sports Grill in Fayetteville, the ultimate spot for Razorback fans. Whether it's on game day or just a night out, Parker's has you covered with mouth-watering burgers, wings, and ice-cold drinks served up in a true sports atmosphere. With TVs on every wall, you won't miss a single play while you're cheering on the Hogs. So grab your crew, head down to Parker Sports Grill, and make it to your go-to spot for food, fun, and Razorback sports. That's Parker Sports Grill, where Fayetteville comes to eat, drink, and call the Hogs. And they upgraded their TV game this year with a huge, giant, projector screen for every Saturday for the Hogs game. And speaking of Parker's, mark your calendars, guys. Next Saturday, me and Austin are going to be live from Parker's doing a pregame show before the Arkansas kicks off at 11 a.m. versus Memphis on the road. So, come out, visit us out there. We're going to do a watch party after the game. So we'll finish up our pregame show about 20 minutes before the game. And it's a big event for Parker's, as it's their, anniversary, 3-year anniversary of being open in Fayetteville. So, we'll be there watching the game, doing a pregame show. So come check it out. Come visit with us and watch the game and cheer on the Hogs. So it's going to be a fun time. But as we kind of transition over, we got some other big news in Razorback Nation this week. And, this is one that Hobbs likes to talk about, is we got the 2026 baseball schedule release. So, Hobbs, what's your initial thoughts on the 2026 schedule for Arkansas?
Amazing. I mean, I talk about this all the time about how I feel like anytime a schedule gets released, whether it's football, basketball, baseball, we get screwed. We always have to play the best of the best every year. And in baseball, it doesn't really concern me that much because we normally play, not only beat those teams, but play good against them. But yeah, I mean, you don't have Tennessee, you don't have Texas, you don't have A&M, LSU's not on the schedule. You just don't normally see that, so it's a little bit weird. But I mean, at the same time, it's a schedule that you could be looking at Arkansas being the SEC champion this upcoming season. Not saying they're the best team in the conference, but with the schedule, it just lines up that I just see us having a chance to win the conference next year.
Right, and it's like, jokingly, I saw somebody said was like, man, they must really want to help DVH get that, championship by giving them such an easy schedule this year.
Well, that's the thing about winning a championship. It doesn't happen in the regular season. Yeah, right. You set yourself up good, but I mean, we've had some really tough schedules and been the number 3, number 4 national seed consecutive years. I mean, even we were the number 1 national seed at one point. We all know what happened then. But so to me, that really the postseason is always something crazy that happens with us in that. So, but yeah, I mean, it sets up for us to be a high national seed once again and possibly get our second conference championship.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Hobbs. I like it because I think Arkansas, dude, I don't think they'll lose the series. I mean, baseball is baseball, and they may, but it's probably, knock on wood. But at the same time, from a fan's perspective, it's like it's kind of boring, there may be a surprise team that comes up, and I think Auburn's kind of feisty sometimes too. Stuff like that. South Carolina has a history of good baseball teams. We don't play Vandy either, do we?
No.
Yeah, so I mean, like, it's just kind of like, it's not. There's no marquee matchups, and that kind of sucks. At the same time, but I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it because, like you said, the season, national championship isn't won in the season, and they may go out and they just blow it in the Fayetteville Regional. Who knows? They've done it before. Again, knock on wood. But at least in the past, we've had these great games to watch, and it might not happen this year. We might have just some really big blowout games. Who knows?
Well, you still got some good matchups. You got Mississippi State coming in town right off the bat in the SEC play. That's a good – Mississippi State's brought in a new head coach that's a great coach, and they've got one of the best incoming portal classes there is. So they should be pretty good. You got – Florida's coming to town. Florida's always got a decent team. At Auburn, that's never an easy series to win. At Alabama, we seem to struggle there for some reason. And then you got Georgia coming to town. I can't remember the last time Georgia played in Fayetteville. So that might be something I might mark my calendar and try to make it out there to that one. Because Georgia, I mean, coming to town, I mean, we got to go to Missouri. That's going to be a terrible weekend playing in that crappy stadium. And then Ole Miss comes to town. So, they don't really play as well in Fayetteville. And then at Kentucky, I hate playing in that stadium too. And then we play Oklahoma, which we haven't really played very much either. Right. So that's another.
That'll be fun.
That's the last series in Fayetteville. So
not to I think so. Go ahead.
I was saying I think that's going to be fun. I've said multiple times. I think if Arkansas would play Oklahoma more in sports, they'd have a really good rivalry. Yeah, the culture is quite the same, and the distance between the two. I mean, I live in Siloam, so I know just as many Sooner fans as I know Razorback fans, and it's just part of like I already have that rivalry with them, and they don't even play.
Yeah,
I think that's going to be a really good game.
Yeah, and so you look at it too. Arkansas even opens the season, the opening weekend, playing down in Arlington in the Shriners Children's College Showdown with Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, Vandy. So there's a chance we could play Vandy this year down in Arlington. So once those matchups are drawn, we'll be able to know more about that. But yeah, you look through the rest of the schedule. You come back from Arlington, you have a single game series against Tarleton State. Turn around, have a 3-game series against Xavier at home. You play 2 games against Arkansas State, a 3-game series against UT Arlington, single game midweek against Oral Roberts, 4-game series Friday through Monday against Stetson. And then, like Hobbs mentioned earlier, you open conference play with Mississippi State at home, midweek series against Northern Colorado. Then you go on the road to South Carolina, got a midweek against UCA. You have Florida coming to town after that. At Missouri State, that's one game that you're going to play every year for the most part. Then you travel to Auburn, have Little Rock midweek at Alabama. So we're going to both Alabama schools this season. You come back and play UAPB in North Little Rock at Dickey Stevens Park again. So, don't plan to watch that one because TV coverage is always terrible down there. Then you come back home, play Georgia at home. Then you play Missouri State at home. And then round out the season, your final conference series is being at Missouri. You play midweek against Northwestern State. And then have 2 back-to-back home series against Ole Miss, Oklahoma, and then finish the season out on the road at Kentucky. So, not as, the stereotypical top of the conference teams you think of when you think of the SEC with your Floridas, your Vandys, that type of situation. But, you still got some good matchups in here, but, between, playing Oklahoma, in a conference matchup for the first time, having Georgia come to town, like Hobbs said, I can't remember the last time Georgia came to Fayetteville. So you're still going to be in store for a lot of good matchups this year. But I think definitely non-conference wise, not the toughest slate, but for once in, I don't know how many years, at least one Arkansas sports gets a decent schedule and not the number one toughest schedule in the nation.
That is a big relief. Like, I don't know why the guys who make the schedule hate Arkansas, but from top to bottom, it doesn't matter what sport it is. It's horrible scheduling.
Right. They just
I wish they would do this with football.
Oh, it's time to make Arkansas schedule. They start saying, all right, what are we going to do then this year, guys? Like, it seems like that's just always the case.
I think that's why they're going to this nine game schedule, because they were supposed to flip and have Arkansas play like the Kentuckys and the Vanderbilts and stuff like that for football. But now they're going to this 9 game season conference schedule. And I feel like it's just another way to say, oh, well, we're going to have you play the Auburns and the well, that wasn't a good example, but Alabama's and the Mississippi and all that junk like they do every single year. So I don't know. They just try to keep us down. I hate it. Just give us Missouri schedule one time, just once.
Yeah, exactly. So in other Razorback news, Arkansas's women's soccer team wins their SEC opener on the road at Florida. This team is kind of starting to come their own. They win a 3-2 matchup. So getting back, after a couple of rough starts, to the game with, losing a couple, then having a couple of draws. So they finally get back out there and open the SEC conference play with a win. Fantastic things there. As you look through the rest of everything going on, you're starting to see a little bit of stuff out there about this Arkansas basketball team, a few little kind of teasers of pictures of guys out there ready for the season. A lot of hype there. So they did announce, so Arkansas versus Notre Dame. And you mentioned this too, Austin. It's a stripe out game. Arkansas's last 2 stripe outs, Austin tweeted this. 2021, Texas, what happened then? 2024, Tennessee, what happened then? So they're trying to play on a pattern here.
Let's be clear. I don't know if those are the last 2. I just said they were notable ones. So I might have forgotten about the other ones, to be fair, just because my brain wants to get rid of that trauma. Games. Notable stripe out games, Tennessee and Texas.
Right. So a couple other updates for basketball. So Arkansas will be playing Houston in the 8th annual Never Forget Tribute Classic. Tickets will go on sale October 8th for that, and that'll be in Newark, New Jersey. As we mentioned earlier with our show at Parker's, the Memphis game is going to be an 11 a.m. kickoff, kind of standard time for Arkansas there. So, that they should just call that the Arkansas kickoff slot instead of 11 a.m. at this point. But
at least it's on ABC, though.
True. So we'll jump over and get into everybody's favorite part is the pick'em. But before we do, Pigpen jumps in and says, think Sam and Lane have real beef, or is it big media orchestrated? Sam never gets animated on the sidelines. I wouldn't know either way.
Dude, you know what? He's starting to get pretty animated. I don't know if you watched that game against Arkansas State. Arkansas's like up by like 30 points, and he's over there barking at either the refs or a player. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, he was.
He looks a little bit more feisty now that his hip's fixed and all that stuff.
I was about to say he's got new life after getting a new hip.
I think so, and you can tell by the, what's his name? The guy over at SI Arkansas, Daniel Shee, who asked that bad question, and he barked back at that. I mean, I feel like in the past, Sam Pittman kind of been like, like what kind of question is that? No, but he was like pissed about it. He just seems like a different coach. I'll be honest. And that's not me trying to hype him up or anything. He just looks feisty on the sidelines and at practice and in the media room. So I don't know. Maybe they do have beef. I don't know where this is coming from, though. Do you guys know? Like, they have any beef?
Well,
I don't know.
Well,
my
maybe
thing is,
between
let's
Kiffin
not.
stealing all the players.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true, but that
Yeah,
happens
I mean,
everywhere.
you got him, and then he's always opens his mouth about us too. So it's
Oh
it's one of
yeah.
the things where, like,
To be
what's the
fair,
like?
Lane opens his mouth about everybody. So
Yeah, that's true too. But what's the like about the guy? So, like, I mean, there's nothing to like about Ole Miss. So
He can rock a visor.
well, so can Gus Malzahn, but the only one that fears Gus Malzahn right now is Alabama.
Oh, it's a good one. All right, so now we'll jump into our pick'ems, as you know, just to kind of remind everybody where things stand in our pick'em challenge. We've got myself leading at 14-6, Austin right there at 13-7, and then Hobbs bringing up the rear at 11-9. Like he said, that can change any given week in college football in these now that in this era. So, as we jump over to this week's pick, guys, it starts us off with, right away, Clemson headed to Atlanta to take on Georgia Tech. 6.5-point favorites is your Clemson Tigers on the road. Over under 52.5. We haven't seen great games from this Clemson team so far this season. The loss versus LSU, and then they come back and they beat Troy, but they were playing with their food a little bit, if you will, in that first half, and it did not look good for Clemson. Whereas you got Georgia Tech 2-0, beating Colorado to open the season 27-20, and then playing Gardner-Webb and winning 59-12 last week. What's your guys' thoughts on this matchup? First matchup for our pick'em.
Yeah, so Clemson, I don't know what's going on with them. They may just be rusty and trying to shake it off. But I do think they're a good team. I think Kate Klubnik is a good quarterback. It's just I don't know. I don't know what's going on, really. I do think they get this win though against Georgia Tech. I think it's probably a little bit too close for comfort for Clemson fans. But I think they just have so much more talent than most of the other teams in the ACC. I mean, they still kept up with LSU. Let's not forget that, right? They didn't have a great offense, but they were within striking distance for most of that game. And I think they just have way too much manpower for Georgia Tech. And I don't think they'll come out playing with their food this time.
yeah, I mean, look, if it was the beginning of the season, I picked Clemson to beat LSU. I thought they would. They haven't looked good. I know they've had a tough game against LSU, and then they had to get up to play Troy, so that might be a little bit of it, starting slow. But look, what I've seen from Clemson is hard for me to pick them right now. They're playing at Georgia Tech. Haynes King is an experienced quarterback. He's a very good quarterback. So I don't know. I have to go with Georgia Tech here. I just can't. I can't pick Clemson for what I've seen right now.
Fair enough. This is a tough one. Like I see both sides of what you guys are saying. Clemson extremely talented, but struggled at times this year. On the flip side of that, you have a really tough game against LSU that, it comes down to it, you lose that one and you have to get up to play Troy, but you don't look great against Troy. It's tough, but I'm going to take the Tigers in this one. So, me and Austin rocking with Clemson, giving them one more chance.
Right here.
I'm giving them one more chance. I'm giving Clemson one more chance, and then if they blow this one, they lost me for the rest of the season. I can't do it. So,
yeah, I'm kind of right there with you too.
All right, that Troy team we just talked about that kind of held their own against Clemson a little bit. We'll be taking on Memphis in Alabama. Arkansas's opponent next week. Spreading this one 6.5, 6.5 point spread in Memphis's favor. 50.5 points over under. It is in Troy, Alabama. Troy's the home game in this one. Your guys' thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I don't know how much of that game against Troy was a fluke. I think a little bit was. They just weren't. They just weren't in sync. I don't think. I do think Memphis is a good football team. This is one of the reasons why I don't like that we're going to Memphis to play this team. I feel like they were a borderline 2020 top 25 team. Going in, I say borderline, probably top 35, top 40, right? I think Memphis probably walks out of there with, in covers. I don't think it's going to be much of a contest.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I've spoke this since day one. Playing Memphis is just absolutely ridiculous because it's not going to be an easy game. We're about to have to, fight for our life Saturday night to open the SEC. So, let me take Memphis because I want them to be undefeated when they play us.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at this one, you've got Memphis 2-0. We mentioned it, Troy 1-1. Memphis coming off wins against Tennessee, Chattanooga, Georgia State, that same team that Memphis played. They beat them 38 or Ole Miss played. They beat them 38-16. But they have a very similar, at least from what I can tell, offensive game plan to what Arkansas does. They got Brendan Lewis, quarterback, that he is their leading quarterback, but also their leading rusher. So he's a very mobile guy, 395 yards through the air with a touchdown, has 2 touchdowns and 149 yards on the ground. Hobbs' point, I want to see what Memphis is going to do, and I kind of want them at their best. So, give me Memphis to win this one on the road and get ready for a big-time matchup next week. And then arguably, if not one of the biggest matchups of the weekend, you have Georgia heading to Knoxville to take on Rocky Top, Tennessee. Georgia coming off wins against Marshall and Austin Peay. Tennessee coming off wins against Syracuse and East Tennessee, where, big wins there. Gunnar Stockton, Joey Aguilar, both teams have new quarterbacks. Georgia favored by 6.5 in this one with a 49.5 point over under. Your guys' thoughts? Austin, you're on mute.
I had to cough, so I put it on mute. I apologize.
You and the mute.
What time is?
Don't get along.
I know. What time is this game?
2:30 kickoff.
What time?
2:30 on ABC.
2:30
At Tennessee.
So it's at Tennessee. If it was a night game, I would be like, really, I know who I'd pick. But I'm a little bit curious to see if Tennessee can bring the heat at 2:30. I imagine they can. They're pretty rowdy. Here's the thing about this. Georgia has a good defense. Tennessee's offensive is elite. But here's the thing. I don't know if what's they're called? If Georgia's offense is going to be good enough to keep up with Tennessee's offense. They only scored like 28 points against Austin Peay, right? That's not a lot. They put it on Marshall the week before, 45 points. But I don't know, man. I'm going to have to go with Tennessee. With it being in Tennessee, I feel pretty good about it. I think if it were a night game, I think unequivocally, I think they would win.
Yeah, I got to go with Tennessee too at home. It's hard for me to pick Georgia when I haven't seen, them put up the offensive numbers Tennessee has. So I have to pick the home team in this one.
Yeah, I think we're going to be a Tennessee sweep here because I'm going to go as Tennessee as well. We talked on it before the season about, what would this Tennessee team look like with no Nico? Well, they brought in Joey Aguilar, and, it doesn't seem like they're missing a beat. They're coming out high efficiency, high-powered Josh Heupel offense. Like, this team is rolling, and, I haven't seen – to your guys' point, I haven't seen enough out of Georgia to show me that they can come in here and – put up the points they need. Yeah, we know Georgia's, typically under Kirby Smart has a great defense, but can you score enough points to beat a high-powered Tennessee offense like this? So, give me Rocky Top in this one, and maybe Georgia will show up to the contest, but I think it's Tennessee's game to lose, not Georgia's to win. As we continue on here, Washington State Cougars are headed to Denton, Texas to play North Texas. Surprising matchup here to see Washington State going to North Texas. Usually this is North Texas plays these bigger schools and then goes to the bigger school, but not this time. Both teams 2-0. Washington State coming off wins against Idaho and San Diego State. North Texas coming off wins against Lamar and Western Michigan. Washington State or North Texas favored in the game by 5.5 with an over under 58.5. This game's at 2:30 on ESPNU. Does the Mean Green of North Texas get a big time win against Washington State?
Bro, Washington State is falling on some hard times not being in a conference, I guess. Because dang, that is weird. I have no clue. I'll be honest with you. I'm probably just gonna pick Washington State because of the name. But if Vegas has them has them as a favorite, I don't know. But I'm just gonna go with my gut and pick Washington State.
And these are the kind of games that y'all have taken the lead on. This stuff like this, like Washington State, North Texas. Like, who knows? Like, I mean, you're literally just throwing up, saying a prayer at this point. I mean, Washington State, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, you know what? Give me the Mean Green of North Texas at home at 2:30 on ESPNU. We'll see what happens here. A dart throw out there. And see what happens.
This is where he's going to pull away from us, Hobbs.
Apparently, yeah.
Next matchup we got is the Pitt Panthers heading to Morgantown to take on West Virginia. Pittsburgh 2-0, West Virginia 1-1. Pitt coming off victories over Duquesne 61-9 in Central Michigan. West Virginia beating Robert Morris, and then surprisingly, Austin and I talked about this, losing to Ohio last week 17-10. This is usually a big time matchup for these two teams. 2:30 ESPN kickoff. Pittsburgh favored by 5.5 with a 57.5 over under. Big time matchup against these two schools that they play every year. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is one of those weird ones too, because they do really hate each other. It's probably one of the more underrated rivalries in the country. It's called Backyard Brawl for a reason, right? But even then, I probably would have picked Pitt before West Virginia's loss to Ohio, but that just kind of solidified for me. I do really like Pitt's quarterback, Eli Holstein. The dude's got like 500 and something yards already, 8 touchdowns. He's one of the highest there, and he's got some wheels too. So, give me the Pitt Panthers.
There is no question about it. Easy decision. No way in heck am I picking West Virginia after losing Ohio to win this game. So give me Pittsburgh.
I agree. Pittsburgh sweeps here. After you're a school at the level of West Virginia, and then you go play Ohio and you drop the ball. Easiest way to lose confidence. They're right up there with Clemson. I'm going to take Pitt as well. As we move on here, another outstanding Sun Belt matchup here, you guys, with App State headed to Hattiesburg, Mississippi to take on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. App State 2-0, coming off victories against Charlotte and Lindenwood. Southern Miss coming off of a loss against Mississippi State, beating Jackson State. This game is 6 p.m. ESPN Plus game. 2.5-point favorite, Southern Miss with a 53.5 over under. Who wins this one, you guys?
You have Southern Miss as the favorite on ESPN. It has App State as the favorite, and they have a minus 165. But either way, I'm going with the Fighting Dell Loggins, and Rashad DeBillions. Give me App State. I don't know much about them, but I know those two players, and I am a Rashad DeBillion truther. So,
not to mention they have the former Vanderbilt quarterback AJ Swan,
right,
who's put up 662 yards in the first 2 games with 5 touchdowns.
They've done pretty
DeBillion
good.
has 300 rushing yards on the season and a touchdown.
Yeah, he's doing really good over there. I'm glad to see him do that good.
Yeah. So I would love to pick the school that's just down the road from me, but it's just hard for me to pick them because I haven't seen them win a good game yet. I mean, I thought they'd play good against Mississippi State. They did for one half, and they didn't beat Jackson State like I thought they would. So yeah, I mean, Appalachian State looks good right now. So I can't pick Southern Miss in this one. As much as I want to, I'll go with App State.
App State across the board again. There we go. As we move on, another primetime matchup for college football. Texas A&M is headed to Notre Dame to take on the Fighting Irish. Notre Dame 0-1, Texas A&M 2-0, 6:30 on NBC. You've got Notre Dame favored in this game by 9.5 with a 49.5 point spread. A&M coming off wins against UTSA and Utah State. And then you have Notre Dame losing a close one to Miami last week.
That was a good game.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, or 2 weeks ago. And so, they're back in Notre Dame. Notre Dame went to A&M last year, won. So, is this a revenge game for A&M, or does Notre Dame get the win here and move back to 500 on the season?
I think it'll be very close. But I'm a little bit worried about the Aggies because of the UTSA game. They really struggled. I thought UTSA might pull it out, but the Aggies started to pull away. Plus, Notre Dame's had 2 weeks to prepare. They're playing at home. They're pissed because they were embarrassed against Miami. Plus, I need them to not lose another game before they come to Fayetteville, because if Arkansas wins, it's got to be against a Notre Dame team that's not going to be, not have 3 losses after they leave Fayetteville. So, I'm going to pick Notre Dame for this one.
Who do they play next week that they would have 3 losses?
No, after Fayetteville. So
I got you.
They can't lose against Miami, Texas A&M, and Arkansas, or it's just going to look like a horrible Notre Dame team. I don't want that.
Yeah, what's really weird to me is they didn't play last week.
Early bye week.
That's what I'm saying.
Really?
So that was really weird. So, but yeah, I got to go with Notre Dame in this one. A&M does not look good. Notre Dame was right there in the game against Miami, could have won it. So I'll take Notre Dame.
I was about to say, there's no way in the world I'm going to pick Texas A&M in anything. I don't care if they're the better team or worse team. I will not pick A&M in anything. So give me the Fighting Irish. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And we move on to Austin's game of the week that he wants to talk about. You have the 2-0. I repeat, 2-0 Vanderbilt Commodores headed to Williams-Brice Stadium to take on the overrated 2-0 South Carolina Gamecocks. South Carolina favored by 5.5, over under 47.5. Vanderbilt coming off wins against Charleston Southern and beating Virginia Tech last week. South Carolina beating Virginia Tech 24-11. Nothing impressive there. Struggling the first half with South Carolina State winning 38-10. Austin, I'll let you go first since this is the game and team you're pounding the hammer on.
South Carolina sucks. Okay. There's nothing. They are not a good football team. They have a good defensive line and they have an athletic quarterback who is KJ Jefferson 2.0, except he doesn't throw as good as KJ Jefferson does. Okay. I do not understand the hype and it makes me mad. It literally makes me mad that people are out here saying Lenore Sellers is a better quarterback than Taylon Green or any of the other 15 or 14 quarterbacks in the SEC. It doesn't make sense to me. Vanderbilt, on the other hand, look, we have a common opponent already. They both played Virginia Tech. Look at those scores. Tell me which team is the better team. It is Vanderbilt. I think Vanderbilt's got a good team. I think Diego Pavia is going to, heck, maybe they even get 7 wins this year. I don't know. I don't know if South Carolina is going to make 6. Who knows? I don't know their schedule, so they might have an easy schedule, but yeah, Vandy all the way.
I just think at night game in the SEC, I'm going to pick the home team. It is what it is. I'm not on the board that South Carolina sucks like he is, but I mean, yeah, I think Virginia Tech might suck, so that might be the thing you might want to talk about. But yeah, I'm gonna go with South Carolina.
If they suck so bad, you think they put more than 24 points up?
Yeah, but their defense is not going to allow Vanderbilt just to run up and down the field. So, I'm gonna have to go with South Carolina.
Austin, I'll join you. Give me the Vanderbilt Commodores in this one and the Fighting Diego Pavias. Let's go.
Oh, yeah, I'm definitely catching up this week.
Oh, hey, it's so good for you, Hobbs. That's the fun in this. So, we move on to the Duke Blue Devils headed to New Orleans to take on the Tulane Green Wave. Duke 1-1, Tulane 2-0. Duke coming off a victory against Elon and a loss to Illinois in the Fighting Brett Bielema's 45-19. Tulane coming off wins against Northwestern and South Alabama. Tulane favored by 2.5 in this one, and 52.5 over under. Your guys' thoughts? This is a big game for Duke because, especially their quarterback that transferred from Tulane.
Yeah. Man, I thought they played decently against Illinois. I think Illinois is a good team, and they played pretty good. I'm going to go with the Blue Devils. I think it's going to be pretty close. I think Tulane's also a very good team, and they're playing in New Orleans, so that's going to be a step up for them, but it's not a huge stadium, so it's not going to be an amazing crowd that they've never seen before. So yeah, I'm gonna go Duke.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. These last 2 picks are really toss-ups for me. Duke, you look at the Illinois game, it was right there back and forth for a while, and then Illinois pulled away. So yeah, I got to go with Duke against a smaller school.
Yeah, this is a tough one. Like Hobbs said, it's a toss-up. You've got Mensah for Duke, but then you've got Retzlaff for, Tulane. You know all the story about him in the offseason, leaving BYU and whatnot. Yeah, this is an interesting, one to think about. And, it is home game in New Orleans for Tulane. Duke, as we established, ACC, bigger school. But, it's a tough one. Close call for me, coin flip, but I'm going to go with Duke as well. And then to round things out, you have the matchup at 9:30 on ESPN. You're going to be staying up for that, right, Austin?
No. Not at all.
The Minnesota Golden Gophers headed to Cal and Berkeley to take on the Cal Golden Bears. Both teams 2-0. Minnesota coming off victories against Buffalo and Northwestern State, and then Cal coming off wins against Oregon State and Texas Southern. Cal starting a true freshman at quarterback. The former Fayetteville, Arkansas product starting at quarterback for Minnesota. You've got Minnesota favored in this one by 2.5 with a 43.5 over under. What do you guys think in the late ESPN time slot?
Well, this one, like Hobbs said, it's kind of a toss-up for me. I'm probably going to go in Minnesota, just because they play in a harder conference. They've actually showed a little bit of life on offense, and I mean, Cal's put up at least 34 points in every game. Yeah, I'm gonna go Minnesota just based on my gut.
Yeah, I mean, I remember California, Oregon State being a pick 'em in that week one, and you mentioned the true freshmen starting, and then they
Right.
beat the brace off of them. So, to me, that's not an issue anymore. I'm going to have to go with a team that's at home, like you said, 9:30 game, Minnesota, all the way up here. Going to have to travel all the way down to California. So, I'll go with the home team in this one.
I was about to say this is a tough one, like we talked about. Yeah, you've got all these different factors to travel for Minnesota. The true freshman for Cal doesn't look like that's stopping him. Back-to-back weeks of putting up 30+ points. Minnesota beats Buffalo by 13, and then blows by Northwestern State. There's some something wanting me to pick Minnesota because of the ties with Drake Lindsay, the Fayetteville kid that everybody was hoping he'd be a Hog, but you know what? I'll take the Minnesota Golden Gophers in this one.
Man, y'all just
win on the road.
Get back up. All right,
Hobbs, either you're gonna jump
be
us or you're gonna fall. Yeah.
The real question is, can either of you pronounce Cal's starting quarterback's last name?
Let me see.
Let me see.
I was just on there.
Oh yeah, I think Sagapolutele.
Sure. I just wanted to see you guys say that. So,
oh man.
Well,
He's got 6 syllables in his last name, bro. That's at least 4 too much.
Who knows? But with that being the case, got through our pick 'em. We talked about the Ole Miss game. We talked about baseball season and the schedule. You guys got anything before we get out of here? Ready for this big time matchup on Saturday as Arkansas gets ready to open up conference play?
Yeah, I'm just surprised that wasn't on one of the pick'em games. So
yeah,
that's very interesting.
Watch the Arkansas Memphis game be on a
I'm
pick'em.
sure watch, yeah.
Probably. But no, I'm good too. I think we covered just about everything.
All right. Well, like I said, don't forget earlier, next Saturday, pregame show at Parker's for me and Austin. And then come have a watch party with us as we watch the Arkansas-Memphis game at Parker's. Come enjoy a good time, good food, good drinks, and cheering on the Hogs with some Arkansas fans. And as we get ready to wrap up, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Go follow us across our social medias at Hogs on the Hill on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. We're even over on Blue Sky. And as we get ready to wrap up here, everybody have a great rest of your weekend. Get ready to cheer on the Hogs as they open up conference play on the road at Ole Miss in Oxford on Saturday, 6 o'clock, ESPN. It should be a good one. I'm excited to see what Taylor Green and this offense is going to do. But for Austin, Hobbs, myself, we're going to get out of here. Everybody have a great weekend. Go Hogs, and we'll see you right back here on Sunday for your weekly Razor recap.